On the 3rd of August 2026, the XRP Ledger Foundation posted 11 words that most of the community scrolled past. It said it was expanding public infrastructure access to the XRP Ledger with a company called Ankr, and that new nodes were spread from New York to Singapore. So, why does a channel that covers Ripple, tokenization, and the plumbing of institutional finance care about a node company? Because everything that touches the XRP ledger, your wallet, an exchange, a custodian like Fireblocks, a compliance desk, has to ask a computer somewhere for the state of the ledger. And for years, the main public doors were servers run by Ripple that Ripple's own documentation says are not for business use and may become unavailable at any time. 4 days before Ankr switched on, those same public endpoints were degraded by a flood of fake validator messages. So today, we look at who Ankr is, what it plugged into the XRP ledger, and what a node is in plain English. And I asked one of Ankr's servers a question myself this morning, and the answer beat the marketing. So come join the Motion Room, our Discord, and make it yours, where we all grow, learn, and build on frontier technologies together. Members get early access to videos, a Friday newsletter, a charts and data channel with our tokenomics and DeFi research, plus daily announcements, hackathons, and job openings. So let us start with what shipped, because there were two announcements and the press blurred them into one. The first landed on the 3rd of August. The foundation's post on X named Ankr and the cities, and a foundation director named Vet added the detail that mattered. A monitoring site at xrpl-rpc.com, and a note that full history access would come later. Ankr's own blog listed 43 methods on both mainnet and testnet, and it was upfront that its nodes keep roughly the last 2 weeks of transaction history, with an archive service on the roadmap. The portal shows 4 node locations: New York, Singapore, Amsterdam, and San Francisco. Then, on the 12th of August, Ankr published a second piece, titled Ankr and the Ripple Ecosystem, and this is the one the outlets ran 9 days later, as if it were fresh. That post is a pitch to institutions. It says Ankr is SOC2 Type 2 certified, runs on a private fiber network with a 99.99% uptime agreement, and it names Trust Wallet, Fireblocks, TRM Labs, and Dune Analytics as existing Ankr clients. Now, 2 things I want to say carefully. The 300 financial institutions that post mentions are RippleNet's number, not Ankr's customers on the XRP ledger. And the counterparty here is the XRP Ledger Foundation, because I could not find a single Ripple or RippleX post about Ankr, so please do not let anyone tell you Ripple signed this. What the foundation did sign up for is a second public door, run by a company whose whole business is running doors. So, who is Ankr, and why would the foundation trust it with public access? The company started in 2017 with 2 Berkeley roommates, Chandler Song, who is still the chief executive, and Ryan Fang, plus a former Amazon engineer named Stanley Wu as technology chief. Their first idea had nothing to do with serving blockchain data. The June 2018 white paper described a distributed cloud where mining power would do useful work, like protein folding, and the results would be proven inside Intel's secure enclave chips. Andre Cronje reviewed that code the same month and called the ideas ambitious, but not really practical, and the company listened. By 2019, Ankr was hosting blockchain nodes for other projects, and in July 2022, it relaunched as a marketplace where developers rent access to nodes and independent operators earn for running them. That is the business the XRP Ledger just joined, and it is a big one, because Ankr's own year-end post says it served 12 trillion requests in 2025, with BNB Chain, Ethereum, and Polygon at the top of the list. Now, I also want to be transparent about the hard chapter. In December 2022, a former team member planted code that let an attacker mint 60 trillion units of Ankr's staked BNB token, and drain about $5 million from liquidity pools. Ankr rotated its keys and pledged $5 million of BNB to make the pools whole. That hit the staking product, not the node business. So the firm that just wired up the XRP ledger is a survivor of its own bad idea and its own bad December, and it now runs the pipes for more than 100 chains. Now let me explain what an RPC actually is, because the acronym hides something simple. RPC stands for Remote Procedure Call, and it just means your app sends a question over the internet to a computer that holds a copy of the ledger, and that computer sends back the answer. The XRP ledger is unusual here because the things other chains bolt on as smart contracts, like an exchange, escrow, and price oracles, are built into the protocol itself. So Ankr's methods include pulling an oracle price straight from the ledger. Here's the part the announcements did not explain. A full copy of the software, now called XRPLD, connects to the peer-to-peer network and holds recent history. And by default, a stock install keeps only the last 2,000 ledgers, which, at a ledger every few seconds, is about 2 hours. Ankr chose to keep about 2 weeks, and this morning I asked its mainnet server directly, with no API key, and it reported 670,000 ledgers on hand, which is closer to 4 weeks, and it was already running version 3.3.0. That is real, measured, and better than the 2 weeks it promised. What it is not is full history, and for that you still go to Ripple's full history cluster or a paid archive. And one more honest note, because there are 2 front doors. The XRPL-RPC.com endpoint answered me with no key at all, while Ankr's main dashboard endpoint refuses any call without a free sign-up key. Free, yes, but not keyless everywhere. And Ankr's nodes are not validators and are not on anyone's trusted list. So this changes how you read the ledger, and it changes nothing about who decides what goes on it. So this is the section that I think institutions will actually care about, and it starts with a disaster on another chain. On the 18th of April, 2026, a lending protocol called Kelp lost roughly $290 million because a bridge trusted a single node, and that node returned fabricated data. Nobody broke the blockchain. Somebody lied about what the blockchain said. 2.5 months later, on the 6th of July, Ankr published a product it calls Verifiable RPC. The node runs inside an Intel confidential computing enclave, a sealed area of the chip that even the operating system cannot read. Every answer it sends back gets a digital signature over the question, the answer, the chain identifier, and a timestamp. And your software checks that signature locally in microseconds. So if the check fails, the data never reaches your app. It is the same Intel Enclave instinct from that 2018 white paper, 8 years later. Now, the careful part, and Ankr's own paper says it. A signature proves the node signed what the node saw. It does not prove the node's view of the chain is the correct one. So an isolated node on a minority fork would return wrong data with a perfectly good signature. Also, this is an enterprise add-on in early access with a handful of design partners. So if you grab the free XRP Ledger endpoint today, you are not getting signed responses. So the honest summary is that Ankr has built a real answer to the way Kelp lost its money, and the way to use it properly is alongside a second provider rather than instead of one. So why did this land now? Because the public door opened 3 days before the biggest software release the XRP Ledger has had this year. On the 6th of August, the community published version 3.3.0, and it carries 6 proposed amendments. Batch lets one account bundle up to 8 transactions that succeed or fail together, and it replaces an earlier version that was switched off in February after a signature bug. Confidential transfer hides the amounts on multi-purpose tokens using encryption and zero-knowledge proofs while the accounts stay visible. Then there is permission delegation, rebuilt after its own bug, sponsor, which lets a company pay fees and reserves for its users, dynamic MPT, and a cleanup bundle. Before any of that shipped, Ripple ran a public audit contest on Sherlock in April with a $550,000 prize pool. Now here is where the vote stands as I record this on the 24th of August, pulled from the live amendments table. An amendment needs more than 80% of the 35 trusted validators for 2 straight weeks. The cleanup bundle has 24 yes votes, batch has 18, permission delegation has 8, confidential transfer and dynamic MPT have 6 each, and sponsor has 4. The lending protocol and its vault sit at 12 and 13, and Ripple has voted yes on those two and on the cleanup, but not yet on confidential transfer. Meanwhile, over 60% of nodes have already installed the new version, and Ankr's server was one of them. The ledger is about to change how it handles privacy, batching, and sponsored fees. Every one of those features will be reached through a node, and the foundation made sure there is more than one public operator standing there when the votes cross the line. So here's where I land after a morning inside the primary sources. Ankr is a real, large, scarred, and improving infrastructure company that the foundation, not Ripple, brought in to widen public access at exactly the moment the ledger is voting on its biggest feature set in years. The public tier is live, and it measured better than its own promise. The institutional tier is a set of credentials, a service level agreement, and an early access proof product. And the proof product is honest about its limits. What is not here is a Ripple statement, full history, or a keyless door at every entrance. Now, your verified action items for today. If you build, the community endpoint is mainnet.xrpl-rpc.com with a testnet twin, and Ankr's docs page lists every one of the 43 methods and the 2-week caveat. If you are looking for funding, xrplgrants.org is taking applications through the Brink Hong Kong and Tenedy Singapore programs right now, and I found no open hackathon this week, so I will not invent one. The amendment table, both Ankr posts, the Foundation's post, the Verifiable RPC paper, and the July security disclosure are all linked in the description, so please check them yourself. And if Ripple or RippleX publishes anything about Ankr, I will update the Notion write-up and tell you in the community tab. If this kind of primary source research is useful to you, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next one will be built the same way, with the sources open. Yeah, join the Motion Room, grab early access, and I will see you in the next one.